Hey guys and girls, Twist, and of course Maddie with YYC Designz RC Creations. Sorry, we're having a bit of fun here playing. She's my good assistant in the shop, yeah? So today we are working on links. Okay, now you might say that these links are for voodoo, which in this case they are. But they're for anything, really, to be honest with you. So, first of all, starting out with a nice chunk, so you can see it here, nice chunk of 3/16 rod, okay? I want to pull out the micrometer here just to show y'all. 0.185, I don't know if it's quite showing on there, 185, 186, which is also, switch this back around here, happens to be 4.8 mil, okay? So if you ever want to figure it out, fraction to a point, you take your fraction, 3/16, and you divide the 3 by 16, and that will give you 0.184. So if you like to work in English, like I call it, then 3/16 rod, yeah? 3/16 rod. Now, if you like to work in metric, 0.184, same thing, okay? So, problem is, we are now trying, though, to put a RC four-wheel drive 4mm aluminum rod end on this link rod that we're trying to make, okay? On this link that we're trying to make. Now this is, like I said, this is Voodoo's 4-link suspension. As you can see, I've got a bunch of taps, or a bunch of dies out here. These are not taps, these are dies. Taps are the other one, okay? And we're going to make, out of this rod, we cut it down to length, obviously, and then we want to get our threads on both ends, yeah? And then we end up with a full link, and you have a nice steel homemade link. I cut the rear four, the back 4-link suspension down to size, and eventually what I am going to do is I am going to curve them like this, and it's going to give a nice high-rise effect, and Voodoo is in effect going to be lifted, because in real life I want Voodoo to have a 4-inch lift kit in her. I just, as yet, obviously can't afford that, but I want to put the 4-link in her. Now, I know this is blackened and all of that. This is a hunk of aluminum, by the way. Now, I know it's all blackened and all of that, but the point being is it does polish up really well in aluminum, or even the steel, when I bend it, will come along. And I am going to show you that probably in another video. This is just going to be on how to make links for yourself at home the YYC way. I have my rod here in my little vise. Now we're in the little shop again because it is still a little too cold for this old fart to be out in the big shop in the negative numbers. Now my way of doing this is, of course, starting out with a lot of different dies. Now I do start out with a size 12 24 national course
Now the national course is the thread, of course, that this thing is going to cut. Okay, 12 is the diameter. I start out with a 12-24, then I move to a 10-24, then I move to a 10-32, and then I go down to a 5.8. Then I go to a 4.7, and then finally the 4.75. Now, the reason I go through all of these steps to do this is, of course, because when I go to cut my threads, now I'm staying dead even as I can here, and I'm going to crank it on just nice and even by hand, real slow here before I get carried away with trying to even cut the thread. I just get it started very securely so that I know my die is cutting into my material. Now, one of the ones that is going to cut the most on here is not going to be your initial 12-24 die. Your initial real time when you're going to remove a lot of material, a lot of the meat off of your rod, is going to be your 10-24. The 12 is on a 3/16 rod, just enough to cut a nice thread in. In fact, it doesn't even make that good of a thread, to be honest with you. It doesn't give you a whole lot of meat for a nut or anything to grab the thread. I'll show you here in a minute. But now, the other thing a lot of guys tend to forget to mention when they are making homemade links is oil. Now, this just happens to be an old can, but it's basically just gun oil is what I use. I use any lightweight oil, 3-in-1. Do not get the idea that you can use WD-40. That ain't happening, kids. WD-40 is way too light for this thing. Now, you want to use a lightweight oil because you don't want your die getting plugged up with all the shavings and crap that's going to come off of here. But I give the first die a nice liberal dousing. When I start, I basically go a 360 turn, I come back. Now the reason I come back is A, it's going to clear those threads of the crap that it's just cut, and will continue to do that down the length of the rod. Okay, as you notice along, well, maybe you can't see it, but on the vise here, there's all kinds of these tiny little shavings. Trying to get this into the camera so you can see it. There's all kinds of these tiny little shavings that are going to come off, okay? Now that is the crap that when you reverse, now I'm talking cutting, you're obviously going clockwise. So I make a cut, I go a couple revolutions, I watch the pin here, my set pin, and then I go back a full turn, and then I continue on. Now the reason I make sure I go back is to clean out those shavings from my die. So I basically have a system where I go 2 full turns, back a turn. Go ahead again, 2 full cutting turns, back a turn, then getting back to where we were, 2 full, 1, 2, back a full turn. It cleans out all those shavings out of the die. Now you can do this all day long on this rod. You can go as far as you want to go, or as far as you need to go. I tend to go about 3/4 of an inch down the tip of the rod, okay, and that gives me more than enough to be able to attach even the longest links to. But the other reason I go so far down is that it gives me a lot of adjustability on my links, okay. I can loosen the rod off, or the end off, or I can take it all the way down. I can actually adjust my links about an inch altogether because both ends are threaded so far down. Now, that makes a difference whether you want, where you want to set your suspension, whether you want to maybe make it a shorter wheelbase or a longer wheelbase. Now you notice I also came up here like so. I doused it with oil and I just spun it back down. What I'm doing there is actually cleaning out the threads and making a really nice clean thread in there for the next die. Sorry about my shoulder, had to reach and get another die. Now I'm going to my 1024. Now the other thing is, you only have to do these things in hand tight. You do not have to put a screwdriver in here and crank them down. The reason that screwdriver is there is so that you can get it undone, because as you're cutting your thread, it's going to tighten up, believe me. It's also going to heat up, and that is the other reason for your oil, is it keeps your die cool as it cuts and does its job. And that is very important, because I have actually had dies get so hot that they've exploded on me and just blown up. And dies are not cheap, okay? Like tap and die sets. Let's face it, nothing is cheap anymore these days. This stuff is all expensive. And who wants to go destroying their tool anyway, right? So now I've got it mounted. As you see, I had to do it a couple of times to get it on here nice and straight and level. Now I douse it in oil. I'm very liberal with the oil, by the way, but this 1024 now, it is the one that is really taking a lot of meat out. So I go one turn, back it off half a turn again to clean it all out. Yeah, I don't go two. You can tell just by how hard it is to turn this handle how much meat you're taking out of this thing, okay? If you're taking out a lot, judge it accordingly. Don't try to do it all at once. That is the other thing people tend to forget to mention, is they just tell you how to make them, but they forget to tell you to be patient. Don't try to make the thing all in one shot. You've actually got to work at it. You're talking metal on metal, cutting a thread that is very fine with a very small tool. You cannot rush these things. You have to be patient. You have to be accurate. Okay? At least that's my rule. And that is why I chase through with so many dies. Yeah, I know you can do it in 3, but I find that if I go with the 6 die setup that I use, I get a much better thread and a much better product. And after all, that is my goal. I want the very best product that I can make on my rigs, and with my name on it going out to you guys, my friends, when you buy parts from me. I don't want to be selling you guys just a cheap-ass, quick-made thing just because it's handmade. I want to be selling you a very, very quality product. Now, I don't even have to look. What I do is I feel underneath with my thumbnail, and I go right up to the base of the die. I know I'm at the bottom. So, like I explained last time, I back it all the way off until the die is about halfway on here. I douse it again in oil, and now I'm going to chase it through again all the way down to the bottom. It's just going to clean that out, and it's going to make your threads really nice and defined, sharp set of threads on here. Yes, you're going to cut them off, but you do it because it makes a much neater job, and it also makes it, now I am moving to a 1032, it also makes it so that your next die doesn't have to work as hard to go on and start cutting. And what we're doing with all these dies is we're just slowly removing enough material. Now you see that 1032 isn't cutting all that much, so I can just work it all the way down. My tool is oily from doing a bunch, so if this is your first one, keep oiling. By the time you're on about 4 or 5 of them like I am now, you've got enough oil on your tools that you don't have to oil it when it's cutting this easily and not taking out a bunch of meat. Okay, so now I have got it down to a national coarse thread, a 32 pitch with a 10 mil die. Chase it through. Get it nice and clean. Makes it much easier for the next die. Makes a much neater, nicer project. Yes, my method takes a little bit longer. Okay, so now I am switching to an M5.8. So, just to recap for you, if you all are writing this down, which maybe you might have to, or you'll just watch the video again. I started out with a 1224, then I went to a 1024, then a 1032. All of those were coarse threads. NC will be stamped on your die, or NF, or nothing. If nothing is stamped on the face of your die, you just have the M508 stamped on your die, you know it's going to be a fine thread. If there's an NC on there, it means national coarse. NF, national fine. We're moving to a fine thread now. This is where the 5 mil die works very well, because it changes it from a coarse thread to a fine thread. Again, notice how easily it's working. It is taking some off. It's making the diameter of your rod just that much smaller. I don't even want to hazard a guess at just how much smaller. It's not all that much. We're talking thousandths of an inch here. Okay? It might be a millimeter if you're lucky. Okay? But what it is doing is it's changing that coarse thread to a fine thread configuration. So there is the 5 mil 0.8. Okay? I don't worry about chasing that one through. Okay? Because it's not cutting hardly anything. So your threads are still relatively clean for your next die. Okay? Now I am going to go to an M4 metric 4 millimeter 0.7. Now the reason I do this is because I find I don't have to fight as much with it to get an M4 0.7 to cut. If I go straight to the M4 0.75, I find I really have to fight, and I've actually damaged dies doing it to get it to start cutting properly. So to get her to cut proper, smooth, and level, you put a little bit of downward pressure, making sure that you stay level in the process. This does take a little bit of patience at times, because remember, you are going a full millimeter smaller on this die. So once you get it, again, this 4.7 is going to be taking a lot of meat off of this rod. So judge accordingly. Make sure you clean your die threads as you cut. You want to make a nice neat job. Specifically here, you want this to be very, very accurate, and you want to make a really sweet set of threads on this one, because this is your second to last step here. The neater you make it now, the better your product is. Now, your next run through is going to be with your 4 mil 0.75 thread. Okay, you'll always know which end of the die to use, by the way. Here's the M5 0.08. On one side here, it has the writing. Okay, that is the cutting side, so you want that piece down or towards your work. The other side is blank, it has nothing. That is your exit side. Okay, the side that has the writing is the side that you want to insert in your tool, your holder. I keep getting stuck on that one, don't I? It's the one you want to insert on your holder, and make sure that you have proper side down to start cutting. Yeah, so here we go with the 4 mil 0.75, and see how easily it cuts. They're both a fine thread, and it is just ever so slightly changing that pitch on this thread so that you can put your rod ends on. Now, it's not taking off heaps of material, but it is taking off some. So work it through slowly. Back it off if you start to feel any tightness. Run it through again. That's all it needs, is it just needs to be cleared and have some of that meat that got cut off be cleared from its jaws. Okay. It's a nasty little tool. It has jaws. So, yeah, Tams used to get me on that one all the time. Oh, she loved to laugh, guys, girls. I'll tell you, I wish y'all could have met her. She was just the most amazing human being in the world, and she was my world. But I wish y'all could have met her. She loved to make people laugh, and she loved to leave people with a smile, especially friends. Hey, she really thought a lot of y'all, and even though y'all never met her, she thought a lot of y'all for supporting me and taking an interest in my silly little shop. Right? I mean, I'm just some dude who's, trying to make a buck making RC parts and replicas and shit like that, and she thought it was so cool y'all were interested in seeing how I do what I do. But anyway, so now I am chasing these through, making sure that there are no sticky points. I tend to do this one twice just as a double check, because it is a very fine thread. It's small, so I want to make sure I haven't got even the slightest bit of hang up, because the rod ends, of course, are expensive when they're the metal ones, and you don't want to bugger one up by having a piece of crap in your thread, right? And it jams your link either so it won't go on properly, or if it does go on, it never comes off properly and it strips it out, and you don't want that, right? So voila, our link screws on really sweetly. The rod's still a little bit slippery and my fingers are coated in oil, but there you go. And there's rod end on your link. So there you have it, guys and girls. That's how Maddie and I, here, let's get her up here so you can see her. Up we go. So there we go. There's Miss Maddie in all her glory. There we go. So that's how Maddie and I make our links here at YYC Designz RC Creations. And I thought maybe y'all might be interested in seeing how I do that little bit. And these ones just happen to be for voodoo. They aren't necessarily I don't want to get my mic cord tangled up with her and have her chewing on it. As you see, being a puppy, she loves to chew just everything, but she is a good girl. Look, look, say hi to everybody. Say hi, say hi, yeah. She's a beautiful big girl, and she's a lot of fun to have here, and yeah, she keeps me laughing. She's nothing but energy. But anyway, that's how I make the links. Now, these ones happen to be, okay, enough. These ones happen to be for voodoo. I also have the aluminum ones I showed you, which are going to go on root beer, but I basically make them all the same way. The links go on simple, easy, and with no effort at all. You can, if you want, because they're the metal ones, Loctite them, and they're easy to get off. Now, I only put it on part way there, but you get the drift of it. They go on just super simple and easy, and they make a really good thread doing it my way, I guess, and that's why I just continue doing it my way. So I guess that's gonna pretty well do it for this video, and yeah, the next video we're gonna have out is gonna be something a little different again. I have had the good fortune of having a set of bumpers being ordered from one of our friends here on YouTube. It is Pat over at Fat Strings RC. I will put a link in the description so that y'all can go check out Fat Strings' channel. He is getting into doing some videos now, and he's got a couple of crawling videos out, and they're pretty cool. And let me tell you, the dude does his own music for his own videos. I wish I could. He plays a mean guitar, man. The guy is good. And Pat and I have been talking through email. He is making me a fuel cell for Miss Voodoo, a 1/8 scale fuel cell. And I can go ahead and hide my electronics. My glasses got kind of mudged by my little assistant there. So I have I have progressives, so when things get out of balance, I know she's mudged them or nudged them or something. But it's all good puppy play, right? Anyway, that's going to be the next video out. Is hopefully it's going to warm up enough I can get out into the shop, and we are going to make a set of custom bumpers for Pat at Fat Strings RC for his I believe it's a bomber with a Bronco body. I'm not sure, but it is definitely an axial product, and we are going to make some steel bumpers with all the bells and whistles, a Stinger bumper no less for Pat at Fat Strings RC, and him and I are going to do a little swap. He's making me a custom made, custom milled fuel cell for Voodoo to make her look sexy, and I'm going to make him a set of bumpers. So a little bit of a trade going on there. But go check out his channel. Yeah, he's just starting with videos, but he shows how he makes a fuel cell with his mill. It's pretty cool if you've never seen a mill in action, and he's really looking forward to cutting some new videos and getting into the creating end of things, and starting to show you all what he does in his shop. So anyway, Pat and your two sons, hope you're doing good down there in New Hampshire, brother. Alrighty, stay warm. Not that you're cold. I saw your video. You're a hell of a lot warmer than we are, brother. But anyway, y'all be good. Have a good work week, guys and girls. This is Twist with YYC Designz RC Creations and my assistant Maddie running around here. And we'll see y'all in the next video. Hey, take care. Bye-bye.